Life can be short, and life is oftentimes, always, never promised. There's no particular number or guarantee. So it is important that we learn to love each other and give each other the best that we have while we have and when we can. So I wanted to dedicate this segment tonight to everyone, people all over the world, but especially grandmas, grandmothers, grandmamas, big mamas, whatever you call your grandmother, that special lady in your life. Oftentimes, she is the mother of your mother, or the mother of your father, or the mother of your stepmother, or the mother of your stepfather. She could be that neighbor or the lady in the neighborhood who stepped in when other mothers did not. She may be a foster mom. She may be the mom who adopted you, either legally or non formally. But she is that mother that extended herself to be that mother to give you guidance and love. But the one whom I know best, the one who I shared all my life with, the one whom I learned from, the one who taught me to be this brilliant, dynamic, classy woman that I am today, is none other than my grandmother, Mother Queen Extraordinaire, beautiful Mrs. Gladys Jean Tobin Kilgore. And she recently gained her wings. She is now in heaven, soaring above the clouds with her father. And I just take pride in that. Yes, I cried. Yes, I'm saddened that I won't see her beautiful face again. I really shouldn't say that because I look just like my grandmother. Um, it's so crazy. I was in the hospital visiting her a few weeks ago, and she demanded that I give her a kiss on the lips. So I was, and she's like, and I'm like, getting all the sugar I could from her. And I videotaped it. Thank God for cell phones, right? And everyone that I showed the video said, "Oh my God, you and your grandmother, you guys have the same exact bone structure. You look just like her." And it is such a blessing. And it brings music to my ears to hear that because I've always looked like my grandmother, always looked just like her, same exact features. And I said, you know what? If I'm blessed to live to be 94, that's exactly who I want to look like and what I'm going to look like. Grandmother was absolutely beautiful, an amazing woman, mother of 5 children. One of them, I'm just like, that couldn't be her child, but okay. But anyway, mother of 5, uh, grandmother to 9 of us, one deceased. But oh my God, her great grands, I've lost track. She even has great great grands, Nick. And I got to tell you, I was telling my son today. I said, I said, Elijah, I'm not mad at God for taking her. I can't even be sad. 94 years on this earth. My grandmother has never been sick. The only time she went to the hospital, I think she was trying to get to some bacon in the kitchen, fell and broke her pelvic bone. That was a few years ago. It quickly recovered in her late 80s, early 90s because she's never been sick.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? She ate pork. She ate possums. She ate raccoons. She ate everything.
That part's horrible.
She ate all that stuff, right? She ate all that stuff and was, for all intents and purposes, healthy. Healthy. She had a stroke at 94. They gave her brain surgery. She became uh, slightly paralyzed on one side. Woke herself up out of
How
surgery.
old was she when this happened?
94.
Oh wow.
Woke herself up out of the brain surgery. The paralysis on the side went away. Grandma up, talking, walking, all of that. But who can be mad at that? We are her legacy. She has great legacies in my siblings and my cousins, in the children that we are rearing that she is a part of. I learned to speak properly, how to conduct myself, all in church, all because my grandparents introduced me to church, to the Bible, to the Lord, Baptist Training Union. Huh? I had to participate in church. I had to learn the books of the Bible, say them aloud. I had to do impromptu speeches. I had to give Bible verses, be in the plays, talk about baby Jesus. I had to do all of that. Even when it wasn't but one person in the audience, it didn't matter. It was the practice that began to make learning it perfect, and was very instrumental in everything that I did. That's why I'm not afraid to talk to people at all. That's why the answer no means nothing to me. What's a no? So I'll find another way to do it, another intelligent way to get it done. But my grandma was it. And that's why if you go on my pages and even in my DM and people calling and texting, nothing but wonderful things from those who knew her. They knew her very well because, like me, she's very personable, very social, love people, love God's people. Never ran from a Jehovah's Witness. Come on in, have a seat. They never came back. The same two never came back. She'd keep them there 4 to 6 hours, bring out her Bibles, her concordance, everything, and would educate them. Never saw the same two. That's what she did. So, grandma's hands, the touch of her hands, the love from her heart, her blessings, her prayers, her hopes, and her dreams, her ability to love you through your crap, through the things that you done that you thought you were hiding that she already knew about because she did them too, or something similar. There was no fooling my grandma. And I remember my grandparents used to give me everything I asked for. There was never a no until one day I remember my first pair of Pumas. They came from this little shoe store by Zodi's in Newberry's. For anybody that's familiar, I went to John Muir Junior High over there by Butlong off of Vermont and Slauson. There was a Zodi's shopping center. How many of y'all remember that Zodi's? Okay. Zodi's shopping center, and there was a Newberry's, and there was a little Asian. Is that proper? Okay. There was an Asian shoe store there. I don't recall the name of it, but they sold some really nice Pumas, and I just had to have these Pumas. And so my grandma took me and bought the Pumas, and they were $54. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money today, right? For a pair of tennis shoes, not compared to today, right? They're at least double that or almost double that. But that was a lot of money when you had at the time about 5 grandchildren, because I don't think my brother was born at that time. That was a lot of money. But my grandparents never told me no. And I remember her overhearing me say something to somebody, and I was like, oh, yeah, my grandparents will get that for me. They never tell me no. And she looked at me and she was like, that's over. And I was like, what? What? But that saying, I can show you better than I can tell you, she implemented that. So I will never forget the experiences I've had with my grandmother. I will never forget the talks. I will never forget the wisdom that she imparted upon me. Because again, those are all the components that make me the exceptional woman that I am today. I'm not asking if I am, I know that I am. And it is because of the upbringing, it is because of the role modeling. She showed me, she didn't talk about it, she was all about it. She was a working woman. Car, no car, she got to work. If she had to walk, she trucked it. She didn't complain. If she had to walk to church, she walked. She made no excuses for missing Sundays. That was her. Dressed to the nines, When she came home, she took it all off and she put on the moo. We didn't go out to eat because she was cooking dinner. And my grandfather, he would cook dinner on Sundays. He'd work Monday through Friday. Friday, 5 o'clock, you'd find him up working again on Sunday when it was time to fry some chicken, which he did extremely well. The best chicken fryer in the world. But their relationship, it worked. They were married a very, very long time, very long time. Migrated from the South, came here so that they could work. And that's what it was. And most of them did. My grandma and her siblings, I believe there were 11 of them. And unfortunately, my auntie Dolly passed away March 10th of last year. So there wasn't even a complete 365-day rotation between my grandmother and her baby sister. And when she learned that her baby sister passed away, I saw the look on her face. And I knew then that life had changed for my grandmother. So her passing is not surprising to me. And I know that there's a lot of emotion. And I know that sometimes people become angry with God. I don't necessarily feel like it's wrong to be angry with God, but I like to subscribe more to the notion of asking God to comfort me because I understand that everything that lives must die. And I further understand that I have no control over when something lives or when something dies. It also struck me that on the day of my grandmother's transitioning, which was March 7th, that I was talking to my son who just turned 23 on March 3rd. And I said to him, I said, son, I said, guess what else is significant about this day? And he looked at me and he said, Mom, this is the day that I was supposed to have been born. This was your due date. And I said, you're absolutely correct. And I said, it's really crazy because I remember at that time wondering, well, God, why wasn't he born on his due date? And now I said to myself, well, God didn't give me my son on his due date because he knew he was taking my grandmother and this would be her death date. So I've learned questioning God is not always the way, but just understanding and being grateful and thankful for the 94 years that he gave my grandmother in living in great health. She had no health issues until the very, very end of her life. And giving me her, flip the numbers. She was 94. I'm 49. Numbers mean something to me. I think about the year of our Lord and Savior 2023. When I add those numbers, it gives me the number 7. What is the number 7? Nick, what is significant about the number 7?
I have no idea.
I always thought that the number 7 was a spiritual number according to the Bible.
I know people say that.
Okay.
I know that. I know that God's language itself is math.
Is who?
Math.
Math. Okay.
That's the language that God speaks.
Okay.
You look at the universe, you look at the earth, people, everything is math. You know, everything is this plus this is this. Add this together, you get this. Combine these two, everything is math.
Okay.
So I see the significance in when people say, and 7 pops up a bunch of times in the Bible. So I'm sure there's some kind of special, But like you said, one thing I always remember, even at times of people passing away, is there's a scripture where someone's questioning God. He says, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
Okay.
When I laid the measurements for the stars and the planets?" Right?
Okay.
Basically telling you your brain capacity cannot comprehend what's actually going on.
Right.
So I always try to keep that in mind.
Okay.
Like no matter what I think I know, I don't think the human brain is large enough to comprehend what's actually taking place spiritually when we pass, when we're born, while we're on this planet. That's why often I tell people obedience is better than understanding. Sometimes it's better to just do the right thing instead of trying to understand. Yeah. People passing sucks for everybody.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I have to think that there has to be something to it that we just don't understand.
Yeah.
It's part of the process we're just not aware of.
Yeah. Well, when I think about 7, I think about the 7 days of the week, 7 days for the creation. Well, no, because on the Sabbath,
It says a day is upon 1,000 years.
right.
So we're not talking about. I don't. That's what I'm saying.
It's not our day.
Right, but I understand what you're saying. Like the fact that 7 is repeated.
7 seals.
7 is according to man. I don't want to say according to the Bible. According to man, is a number of completion. I think it's.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the going theory with that.
Yeah. But it's just, and I don't know, if those are things that just give me comfort, but they do. They do. Um, and when you can find comfort, or when I can find comfort, it helps me to get through the grieving process better. Now, people say that grieving comes in 4 steps, 7 steps, 9 steps. For me, grieving is grieving. Grieving is, to me, looking at and seeing something happen that you don't want to happen, often affiliated or associated with a loss. Grieving to me is being uncomfortable, not wanting and unfamiliar with that loss. It is not wanting to accept that loss. It is also learning to process and beginning to accept that loss. Sometimes you cry, sometimes you don't. When I lose people, I might shed a tear or two. I oftentimes don't cry until 6, 7, 12 months, 14 months after, out the blue. For my grandmother, the tears, I could not stop. I tried, and several times. And that's why on my post, I posted Grandma's Hands. And thank you, Nick, for playing that song at the beginning. There's no hands like Grandma's hands, that healing touch, that loving touch, right? That helps me through the grieving process because it's a comforting song. It reminds me of my grandmother. There's a lot of songs. Sweet Sadie. Oh, Sweet Sadie. Her name was Gladys, but she was Sweet Sadie. You know, so many things. So if you are grieving the loss of a loved one, sweet memories. Memories. I remember telling my grandma, don't leave me nothing. I don't want to be a part of that mess. It's going to be a mess. And I laughed with her. I was telling my sister and my cousins, I said, I remember telling her, mm-mm. I have my sweet memories of you and my grandfather. And I thank you guys for the woman that you raised me to be. I'm going to take that and everything I need, I'm going to acquire it because of how you raised me to be. Thank you. I'm cool. I don't value material things. I like stuff from time to time, nice things, expensive things sometimes, but it's not necessary. I don't want to be a part of that mess. It's going to be a mess, girl. And my grandma was tickled, tickled, tickled. I'm like, okay, I see what this is. But I got to tell you, strong relationships are so important. And the understanding that the more clear your relationships are, the more, I'll say, perfect you are with that person, where it's more smooth than rough. And when they have to go away, the better you're going to feel about it. Because I have no regrets when it comes to my grandmother. None. And my connection is so powerful with God and so strong with her that as she was transitioning, I was able to feel her transitioning. And that was an experience like none other. And it was so powerful and it was so beautiful because I was a part of that process. And I was able to tell her exactly what I wanted her to know. We've always, as her children and grandchildren, gave her flowers. So she knew exactly how we felt about her. It was no mystery to her. But I needed her to hear me say, thank you for being who you are, for never turning against your family, no matter what we brought you. We always knew there was a bed, there was food, there was clothing. You didn't never have to worry about being homeless. You didn't never have to worry about not having food. You didn't have to worry about those things. She didn't require explanation. She just loved you unconditionally. And that was it. Period. She gave you chances and opportunities to get your stuff together. The good thing is that because of the way she loved us and raised us, many of us didn't go through that. So those are the blessings in that. So my soul is at peace because I know where my grandma is. And I take comfort in that. And for any of you guys that are struggling with something because someone passed away or transitioned on and things are not good for you, my suggestions to you, there's a few things I would recommend. Try meditating, try praying, go to the scriptures, seek understanding, ask God to forgive your thoughts, your heart. You can write a letter to yourself and think about what you as a person in that situation, what your responsibility and roles were. Because you see, that person is gone. So if you want to seek forgiveness, you have to learn to forgive you and yourself. And think about your role in the mistakes. Now, there's a part two. Ask yourself, is there anyone else that you're offending in that same way? Because it just might be you. And I'll tell you something else. In this process right here today, live and well, people can be very mean and evil, and they can isolate family members who actually love them because they're taking on power play positions that will get them hurt or isolated, cussed out, maybe all of the above, because it's family dealing with family. But I'm going to tell you, like I had to tell someone in my family, our grandmother was a mother to all of us, not a possession. She's not a thing. So the best thing you can do is pull the family together, because when the most important member of your tribe and or family and or village is now an ancestor, family can either pull tighter together or further apart, because this person actually is in a position to be the matriarch now. But no one's going to make you the matriarch if you're not behaving like one. So pray and ask God to strengthen your family and strengthen your hearts and strengthen the hearts of the family. And everybody pull together and get through this together, because together we can and together we will. But it is through strength, it is through faith, it is through prayer, because God answers prayers 24/7. Don't take advantage of positions and family. All right. And if you're missing your grandma, like I be missing mine, go to God in prayer. Think of a pleasant memory and smile and play that song, Grandma's Hands. And if you cry, it better be a tear of joy or some type of pleasant remembrance. Because if your grandma was anything like mine, she ain't crying. She happy to get up out this hellhole.
Speaking of that, can I read this is for people.
Yes, please, of course.
This is Ecclesiasticus 22:11. It says, "Weep for the dead, for they have lost the light." All right, so basically explaining, it's okay to cry when somebody passes. Okay, right after that it says, "And weep for the fool, for they wanted understanding." So that's talking about the person who is like just screaming at the funeral, trying to dive in the casket. Afterwards, they just can't function no more. They just, just kind of getting out of whack,
Mm-hmm.
The next line says, um, make, and this is for the people who have understanding, make little weeping for the dead, for they are at rest. But the life of a fool is worse than death. So what this is explaining is, when someone passes, for you to have the understanding this is part of life, they now get to go rest, be at peace. if you sitting there acting a fool because they gone, you want a little Ray back or whatever the situation is, that's worse than death itself.
Right.
Because you're gonna basically drag yourself into sorrow and all these other things.
Yeah.
Into depression.
Yep.
So this is giving you a fair warning on how to deal with it. When my grandparents passed when I was a kid, each like right as junior high school was ending and as high school ending. In retrospect, I can look at it now and understand what was going on.
Right.
But at the time, I completely shut down. Like with school, people, everything. And people think, oh, you just don't care about school, whatever it was.
Right.
I couldn't figure it out either. So
sure.
I can't put no pressure on them. Who knows, right? Right. Right. But now that I'm older, and you still deal with that. So my brother passed.
Yeah.
My other cousin just passed recently. And these are all people around my age.
Right.
Which is even scary.
That's scary. That's very scary.
Right. And I realized, I said, man, I went through a lot when my grandmother passed. I was 10.
Right.
And that affected me for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, ridiculously.
Yeah.
So I had to put that in perspective with other people that actually grew up with when they started passing. Like, how am I actually going to deal with this?
Right.
I can't do anything about it. Like, I can't, there's nothing I can do. So what's the process in this? How should I actually view this process? Should I look at it the way the world's telling me to look at it? This is a traumatic thing.
Right.
I need to grab the casket or like you said, Doc, you really don't understand what people are going through.
Yeah.
You don't understand if they're ready to be at peace with whatever the situation is.
Right.
I know you mentioned her sister passing slightly before her.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine a worse thing, especially living to be 90 in my 90s. And my grandmother's 97.
Wow. That's beautiful.
And she's going through dementia right now, which I think is a blessing.
Yes.
Right? Because at 97, if I seen horse and buggies and all of that shit, and now I got to look up to see this, I don't quite know if I'm going to be too happy about everything and everyone I know is completely,
Yeah.
So we don't know.
Yeah.
So I try to read the scriptures and get confident into that and try to get an understanding that this is the process we all have to go through.
Yes.
The scriptures is not saying it's a bad process.
No.
So that's just our perception of what's happening.
Right.
Right. And instead of, like you said, instead of us being selfish and I want this person to be here.
Yes.
Going through whatever they're going through forever.
No.
You got to accept this is the process. They're at peace.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is.
And reflect on the good times.
Yes.
Weep when you can.
Yes.
But other than that,
you
got to keep it moving.
Yeah. And then look at the seeds she's left.
Right.
Look at the seeds. Most of her grandchildren have advanced degrees. We have masters. I have a doctorate, bachelor's. All of us are working and are very productive. Some of her grandkids.
That's a blessing.
Yes. Even her great grandkids, all working. Most of them. Now the great greats, that's grand, whatever they call them.
They're not gonna work.
Not yet. They're babies. Mine is working. He's still in college.
He need to get a YouTube channel for playing.
Who? E?
Yeah.
He probably has one.
Yeah, I'm gonna get no job, man. I'll show you how to get some money.
And shout out to my son Elijah. He's doing it, and he's so hurting over his great grandma. He is. He raced down there, and she just shut her eyes, and it hurt me to have to tell him, but he really didn't want to see her that way. That would have been hard.
I often wonder about that. I have a very vivid memory, like very scary.
He does too.
Like I can draw things that I've seen.
He can too. Right. So yeah.
I'm aware of that, so I'm conscious of the things that I kind of view in, because I know I'm not going to be able to forget about it. Right. Like in extreme detail. Yes. So the smell of the place, how I felt, how it felt, like whatever's happening. Yes. So when I look at other people, I often think of that, but I often think too, like, I don't know if I would not want to have those memories because I have them. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the other side of the coin. Like I don't know. Like, I seen my grandfather when he was passing. He had cancer really bad, and this guy was like, he might have weighed 160 pounds his whole life. The strongest guy I ever met in my life. Like, he would just squeeze your hand and try to break it every time. That was his thing. So I remember walking into the room, and like you could see his shoulders deteriorating. Yeah. Like This guy's he's not on any pain medication. Like, I look in the room and his face is just balled up, like he's in so much pain.
Yeah.
As soon as the door cracked, he just face back to normal. He just sit there and talk to it like nothing's happening. You know, and he goes, so, but that's always stuck with me, is seeing him right before I walked in the room.
Yeah.
Know? And that's one of those memories I wish I wouldn't have seen.
Yeah.
I wish I could have just stepped in the second act, but it let me know something about my grandfather, is that no matter what he was going through, he protected the image that he put out there for his family.
Right.
And he wanted to represent a strong
black man.
You know, so that's kind of the balance in that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to see us, sometimes to stick with you. Sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess if it happened the way, Doc, I guess that's the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but 94 years on this earth of wisdom. I can remember as far back as when my grandma was like 54 years old. I don't know why. And I remember her she wanted all her teeth removed. Wasn't that wrong with her teeth? My grandma had gold teeth and all that. When she got her dentures, she had them gold. I was like, oh God, yeah, country bumpkin. No, but hey, I love you, grandmother. She is amongst the angels. She's truly an angel. I got people from back in the day at the church say it isn't so. I mean, she wasn't going to live forever, forever, ever. You know, God wasn't going to take her up like he did Methuselah. He could have, but I don't think she would have wanted to live that long. But yeah, but my grandma was amazing. I had to call my one of my exes and be like, Grandma, no. So it's like, if you ever met her, you're devastated behind it. Although she's 94. So you guys just make sure you're loving on each other and doing each other just as good and, the best that you can. Life is one thing. It is short, especially when you're having fun, or living your best life. If things are wrong in your family, pray over it and do the best that you can to make it right. All right. Take care of your health. Take care of each other. And I will be back on shortly with the dynamic guest, Dr. Carl Mack. And we're going to talk about this issue going on down in Florida with this dummy, Ron DeSantis, he wish he could wipe away our history, but because of dynamic ancestors like our queen, the beautiful Mrs. Gladys Jean Tobin Kilgore, yes, she's now an ancestor, y'all. She's earned that right to be mentioned. And this is Black Women's Month, right? Saying a lot, I'm telling you. All right, so be blessed. I'm Dr. Tatanisha Timms, clinical psychologist. Thank you for joining Dr. T's Corner. I'll see you back here shortly. Peace and blessings. Get your AM Moguls.
All right, I'm gonna text you.
Okay.